As people, as onlookers, as athletes, we strive for one thing: victory. We breathe it, smell it, taste it, and when our team has it, we rejoice in it. Your heart wants to beat out of its chest, but in that whirlwind of sense and motion, we grasp the very essence that is sports. For that one moment, for that one play, we are all one, tied to a field, or a court, or a rink. What goes through the mind when two teams meet on that most hallowed ground? What brings a man or a woman to struggle to be the best? Victory. That brings us here, to this field, where today we discuss, analyze, and debate sports, and declare our own victory or defeat. One winner, one loser. This is the playing field.
Everyone, you're watching The Playing Field. We were off last week, but we are back and have an exciting show in store for you. Alongside Matt Stone and Dan I, I'm your host, Alicia D'Addario. On today's show, we have plenty of college hoops, but because you can't have March without the madness. But first, we'd like to congratulate the Oswego State men's ice hockey team on a great season. The Lakers went through the Frozen Four for their 5th straight year and were looking to play in the championship game this weekend. However, the Lakers season came to an end Friday evening in a 2-1 loss to the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point in the NCAA Division III National Semifinals. Sean Holshoff scored the only goal for the Lakers, assisted by captain David Titanic, which came in the first period. Despite outshooting Stevens Point 46-31 in the game, Oswego was unable to capitalize with a goal. So throughout the game, the Lakers had plenty of opportunities on offense. Dan, you were there. What did you take away from the Lakers' offense?
The biggest thing that has plagued this team is special teams. They took only one penalty in the entire semifinal game, and that led to the game-winning goal. And simply put, Stevens Point executed, and Oswego didn't. They had a 5-on-3 opportunity. They didn't execute, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. This team has battled through adversity all season long. And there's so much to be said from the leadership of David Titanic, the way that he took this team under his wing. He and Kyle Batten, incredible, incredible leadership. And your captain doesn't have to be your best player. He has to be the guy that rallies the troops and is there to make the plays at the right times. And in the postseason, that's exactly what Titanic did. This team wasn't expected to get to this point. They didn't expect to get to that point themselves. With such a new roster, it's tough to put that chemistry together. It's a tough loss. It's an extremely tough loss to take for the 5th straight year in the Frozen Four. But I think the big thing is that even getting to this point was an accomplishment, man.
Unusually, I agree with everything that you say for the most part. Now, this team, obviously, you saw the graphic just below. It was an incredible run. There's no doubt about it that this team, once the postseason started, I would say, including the SUNYAC playoffs, no one thought they would make a run to the Frozen Four. Now, once they were able to defeat Geneseo in the SUNYAC championship and then were awarded a home game, we talked about on the show, I like them to win that game.
The puzzle pieces started to fit together to make a run.
I thought they would go ahead and lose to Babson, and they came away with a victory, were able to reach the Frozen Four. I think it's fair to say St. Norbert, who is the eventual champion this past weekend, I don't think Oswego, if they would have been able to get past Stevens Point, would have been able to defeat St. Norbert. They looked like the clear-cut champion, the clear-cut team
absolutely.
From the beginning of the year.
And I mean, even on that point, Coach Gosick in the post-game press conference said the past few years in the national championship game, they lost to a team that was just better than them. And that would have been the case had they reached St. Norbert, but they played a better game. They had more opportunities than Stevens Point did. And that's the thing, is it hurts to see a team that averages more than 4 goals a game come out and only get 1. Granted, it was a very pretty goal. Holshoff managed to fight off a defender. It's tough to see a team with so much firepower not be there in a fast-paced game.
The one point I do want to make is we keep saying this team's got firepower. They had the hot goalie. We said it. Me and you have had this conversation many times. I don't think this was a quote-unquote Cinderella run. I think the talent was always there for this team. You saw at the beginning of the year, they were able to tie Plattsburgh at home. You go ahead and you beat the Cardinals, who were ranked #1 in the country at one point in the season, twice in 7 days.
8 days, yeah.
8 days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Impressive.
When you, not their fault, but when you do and you're able to defeat good teams like that, the expectations will be risen. And I think
once you hit the end of the season, when you did see that happen, sure, that's understood. But at the beginning of the season, all the way until after that senior weekend with the loss to Geneseo, the loss to Brockport, even at that point, you had to question if this team was going to be able to make that kind of run. Once they started to get things rolling, once they won the SUNYAC championship, you wondered how far could this team go. There was really no limit.
the question was,
It was going to run out eventually.
I think the question was always consistency with them. They lost a couple of games early in the year to inferior opponents in the SUNYAC, and then they go ahead on the road in Plattsburgh and win. They host them here in Whiteout, the biggest game on the Oswego campus, nearly come away with another victory. They end up tying the Cardinals. So, all in all, this season, the result of this season from the beginning of the year, if you would have told me this team would have reached the Frozen Four, I know you're going to differ with me on this, if you would have said they would have reached the Frozen Four and lose in the first semifinal matchup, I would have said, you know what, I could see that. I'm not stunned.
The only
by them
thing that
making it this
surprises
far.
me is that they were able to take the amount of talent that they had
which is a good
and
amount.
put it into a team format. It's very easy to work with talent. It's very difficult to make that into a team, and that goes back to what I said about the senior leadership on this team, especially defensively. The juniors, Bobby Gertzakis, Nick Reve, they held down that defensive core that was banged up, and you looked at it, they only had 2 guys on it that were there last year. You look and you saw Denton King then stepped up at the end of the season. Max Scott and Chris Ragaseo is an entirely new pairing. Extremely impressive, and now the ceiling has been raised.
The question at the beginning of the year was who's number one? Who's going to be the goaltender? Matt Sawatsky clearly emerged.
There were so many questions at the beginning of the year. That's the point
There
I'm
was,
making, is that
but
there
was
were so
also
many
some
things
stability.
they had
Coach
to deal
Gosick,
with.
Coach of the Year, one of the best
Right,
coaches
but
of the
they
SUNYAC,
had these issues throughout the
Titanic.
season that
That's
could
true.
have dismantled a much lesser team.
But you know what? With the talent, sometimes talent just overtakes those issues.
Very true.
Sometimes
and we saw that in this postseason.
Sometimes
run.
being such a good team, having the talent. They had a hot
That's true.
goaltender. Late in the season, Sawatsky played out of his mind.
Except in Geneseo. Then you have your offensive ability. This team had a good flow to
They
them.
started
They were
to
balanced.
piece it together come later in the season, and that's going to help them going forward.
All right, let's talk about going forward. What's the future like for these Lakers? I know it's bright. You're going to lose Titanic. Talk a little bit about, you mentioned his leadership, but what is in store for these Lakers?
To me, their future is as bright as it can be. This team's going to come into next year ranked top 10 in the NCAA. It's going to be Frozen Four or bust again. I think that's fair to say. I think this team going into next season, you know, with all the questions that you outlined coming into this year, and they made the Frozen Four. They struggled in that game for Stevens Point, yes. But you know what? They're going to come back with the same goaltender, with many of the same guys who are only going to get better. Matt Galati, by the time he's a senior, could be the next SUNYAC Player of the Year. I don't think there's any question about that.
He was almost All-American this year.
I mean, this guy just pours in goals night after night. You can almost book it. He's going to come away with 2 or 3 points, it seems like. So you know what? I think going forward, they are the team to beat in the SUNYAC. I'll make that stake. I'll make that claim right now, and we'll see.
Put it on record.
We'll put it on record. save the files. Going into next year, Oswego State is the best team talent-wise in the SUNYAC. I think they're the team to beat. They got probably the best coach in Gosick. They have plenty of guys who are more than capable of putting this team on the back. And obviously, with expectation comes more responsibility. We'll see if the Lakers can handle it.
My biggest question is where the leadership is going to be again, because you know what? Between Gertzakis and Reve holding that defensive line, the question is going to be who's going to be the leading force in the offensive core. You have your goal
Most
scorers.
likely Galati.
You'll get Kenny Neal back healthy.
Alex
Galati's
Botten.
the goal scorer. Alex Botten. That line with Alex Botten, Chris Carr,
Montag, no, you can throw in
all of
there.
these guys were just gelling at the end of the
Yeah.
year. The question is who steps up and becomes the vocal leader. That's where my biggest concern is. And you know what? If that's the biggest problem that a team has, you are in great shape. This team is stacked. There's no other way around it.
But
This
this
team
is
is
what-
stacked
yeah.
offensively, defensively, and you know what? Galati's pushing levels. You say SUNYAC Player of the Year. I'm pushing National Player
This
of the Year.
guy-
By the time he hits his senior year, this outlook is extremely similar to what we saw 4 years ago when the last crew came in and went to the Frozen Four. Almost identical.
I think that's
I would
extremely
put him
fair.
in the same place.
Does Galati remind you of Paul Rodriguez, the way he's able to put the puck in the net? Different types of styles that they play, but these are both guys that are capable of scoring 2-3 goals on any given
If you
night.
can score, you can score. There's
Yeah.
no way around that. And I think that you are extremely right there that Frozen Four is obviously the benchmark for next year. And Coach Gosick said it in his post-game press conference. He knows it. The bar is set now. You
Right.
took this team
Yeah.
of freshmen and transfers with only 2 seniors on it, only 3 returning players that were consistent starters last year and took them to
You
the
know what?
Frozen Four.
To be honest,
Can
I'm
this
not-
team win a national championship? I think so.
I
In
think
the
they have a
next 3
chance.
years, they can.
I have a question.
Yes.
Someone brought this to my attention, and you just pretty much proved my point. Gosick is amazing. Is there a chance that he could leave this team and go somewhere that maybe somebody else wants him?
You know what? Ed Gosick, you can see it just being around the Oswego campus, being around the Oswego fraternity. He lives here. His family's here. I don't think. I'm sure it's crossed his mind to go ahead and coach Division I hockey. I'm sure it would coach any coach's mind. I think he's set in stone here. He's got a house here. You know, this seems like kind of one of those. I'm going to be here until I don't want to do this anymore, and that's just how it seems.
The
to me.
campus center has essentially turned into the house that Ed Gosick built. The team's
House when you can recruit the best
the
players.
team's success when you're talking about the campus center opening up following the national championship and just everything that has followed that, it's an incredible saga, and I think that he will go down as, if not the greatest, one of the best coaches Oswego Athletics has ever seen.
Just want to say this. You know what? We go back to this whole leadership thing. Last year, no one knew who the torch was going to get passed to. Maybe
Not
it
at
was
all.
Titanic. Who knew? But this was a 14 seniors. You know, this was a close-knit bunch of team.
This was cleaning house.
This was extremely cleaning house. Who knew it was going to be Titanic? So we'll see what happens next year.
All right, well, we're looking forward to what next season has in store for the Lakers. But coming up after the break, the madness in college hoops is the craziest it's been in a while. And it's only the first and second rounds. We've had some blowouts, close games, overtimes, upsets, and a few Cinderella stories.
Unbelievable.
All that and more next. Stay tuned. You're watching The Playing Field.
Rob, what's up? How's it going? Guys, this is my cousin Rob from Michigan.
What's up?
He's a teenager.
Hey, what's totally. All right. Oh, hey, you want to slow down? No. Really? Huh. Hey, you know what a beautiful animal is? A horse. A horse. Yeah. Beautiful mane. Unbelievable muscle tone. When it runs, it looks like poetry in motion. It's the most beautiful thing on earth. And sometimes when you feed a horse, its lips will tickle your hand. Just tickle it just a little bit. It makes me giggle sometimes. I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you don't slow down, I'm gonna bite into your head like an apple. And thanks, guys, for listening to my horse stories. I could talk about ponies all day long.
You believe this guy? Are you trying to start a wildfire?
Sorry.
Pass the honey?
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Sarah.
Oh my gosh, he's so cute. How do you know him?
Come on, Donovan, do it like I taught you. Love the new tattoo, Sarah. Let's go!
Dude, what?
Dude, that's Sarah. The girl in the pink shirt. That's the girl I was telling you about.
Oh, that's Sarah?
Theater 2 on your left. Hey, Sarah. What color underwear today?
Hey, Sarah. So when are you going to post something new?
Anything you post online, anyone can see. Family, friends,
See you later, Sarah.
even not so friendly people. Think before you post.
can't be happening. This can't be happening.
Of course it's not happening. Armored car. Listen, having money isn't about luck. Make your own coffee, save $1,000 a year. Feed me.
Feed the pig.
Welcome back to the playing field. This tournament has given a whole new definition to March Madness, and it was only the first weekend. Let's start in the South bracket, where 2 brand-name schools were sent packing early, but we're going to talk about that later. We're going to start with the #1 overall seed, Florida. They had a little trouble against Albany, but they really gave it to Pitt. They looked like they, maybe lacked some energy, intensity against Albany, but Scotty Wilbekin, the senior leader against Pitt, he really took over in the second half. So my question is, we're going to talk about Kansas and Syracuse later, but with them gone, are they a Final Four team? Shoe-in?
We asked the question on Twitter, is Florida a lock to be in the Final Four? The way this is shaping out, all they got to do is beat UCLA and then either Dayton or Stanford. The Gators, from the start, were the team to beat in this tournament. I don't think there's any doubt about it. They don't have any guy that's going to go to the next level and make an impact, but they just have all the pieces. They have the good point guard and Scotty Wilbekin. Michael Frazier II can shoot the ball better than anyone. Patrick Young is just a man inside. He's bigger than almost any other player on the court. This guy is just huge. And Billy Donovan has been there before. The Gators are the team to beat. I don't see anyone knocking them off until the Final Four.
I agree with you. The only team that can possibly do that is whoever comes out of the East, and I think that would be Michigan State, but we'll get to that. Florida, I'm just looking through this. There's no way.
UCLA will be an intriguing
You look at
matchup.
Dayton and Stanford, they're going to get to the point where they're going to beat each other up so badly trying to get to the Elite Eight that now all of a sudden you have to face top-ranked Florida. UCLA will present a challenge, significantly. They will present
Kyle
a challenge.
Anderson is a triple-double.
Florida cannot be beat until they reach the Final Four.
I think, to be honest, we'd be silly to make any proclamations the way this tournament has gone.
That's true.
I think anything goes as far as the NCAA tournament right now. UCLA has the Ware brothers who both can shoot the ball very well. Kyle Anderson is their point guard. He's about 6'8", 6'9", kind of a Michael Carter-Williams-esque. Can't really shoot the ball, but always gets the rim, sets up his teammates. Jordan Adams is a big scorer for them. The Bruins definitely will present a challenge. I just think Florida's going to get them in the kind of game that the Gators want. The Gators are going to want to slow it down. They're going to want to slow the tempo.
That's true. And this is in Memphis. This is going to be into one of those areas. It's an easier trip for Florida. It's not easy by any stretch to get to Memphis from Florida, but a lot easier than UCLA.
They're the favorite, and their bracket has worked out very nice for them.
They have now the easiest road to the Final Four.
Without doubt.
Without question.
All right, so let's move on. I mentioned Syracuse and Kansas are both out.
Goodness gracious.
Which one ended up worse? I mean, Syracuse couldn't hit a 3. They didn't. Yeah. And Kansas, Wiggins scored 4 points. What's the bigger upset, I guess?
I mean, the Syracuse game was just a fascinating game to watch from every aspect because this was a game that just came right down to the wire. Dayton just played with a lot
that's kind of the games that Syracuse gets themselves into. It wasn't surprising.
That Cooney call, you saw it right there, awful. I'm tired of this elbow rule nonsense. Now, the call that later comes where where Fair gets trapped in the corner and a lot of Syracuse fans wanted to walk. No. Fair was pushing the player on Dayton, so I didn't have a problem with that. I think the worst loss was Kansas. Stanford has just come out of nowhere. And has made this magical run. But you know what?
I mean, they beat New Mexico, who's done nothing in the tournament in the past few years.
You'll like this stat. Tyler Ennis, Marcus Smart, Jabari Parker, Doug McDermott, and Andrew Wiggins have combined for 0 tournament wins this year. Yikes. Those are 5 guys that are going to go.
Who might be number 1
Embiid didn't play, so I'll leave him out of that. These are 5 of the top 15 NBA draft picks, and they don't get a win.
And you know what that shows me? That's 5 guys that need to come back for another year. Maybe not so much with some of them, but if you look at Ennis, the shot selection was awful at the end of the game.
No, the three-pointer, it's in transition.
Still, you go and you set up, you get the 2. We saw the same thing today in the Wichita State game.
This was the turnover right here that doomed
But we saw the same thing in the Wichita State-Kentucky game. Don't pull up for 3. You have to put it into the hands of your guy that's going to make the shot, which in the Syracuse's case they did. But why not drive? Draw a foul. Even if you don't draw the foul, get the 2 shots, tie the game.
Though. Remember,
but you know what? Ennis put the team on the back.
That's a 35-foot heave at the buzzer.
You see it here. Ennis going to the rack. He put the team on his back, was able to get the N1. Hey, was Trevor Cooney playing? in that game? Because I didn't see
Trevor
him.
Cooney
2
has
points.
disappeared at the end of the
Syracuse,
season.
let's face the facts.
Grant.
They stunk the last month. They were awful the
They
last
only
month.
have one shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor Cooney was their only
Yeah.
shooter, and guess what? At
Only
the end of the
that's fine.
season, he couldn't shoot. And you know what? You're never going to win a game in that case. But you know what?
Yeah.
Both of these losses are equally embarrassing. I think both programs
I
are
think,
looking at this going, what happened? Syracuse, you know you're going to get into a low-scoring game. Kansas, Stanford came out of nowhere. But the big embarrassments here are Tyler Ennis and Andrew Wiggins. These guys need to reevaluate what they're going to do going forward. And just like in the other ones with Jabari Parker, these guys have to seriously consider another year.
you know
Because
what?
you know what? They are not NBA ready.
No, I disagree because
They're not NBA ready. You can't say that these guys who can't do it at this level are going to be able to do it at the pro level.
Kyrie Irving scored 9 points and Duke's lost to Arizona in the NCAA tournament in the Sweet 16 a couple years ago. Now, granted, Arizona was the favorite in that game because they had Derek Williams, who didn't end up being that great of a pro prospect, but was good in college. So you know what? Wiggins is going number 1 or number 2. What Jabari said post-game kind of intrigued me. We'll see if he comes back. But let's go back to the question. I think the worst loss is for Kansas. I mean, this team just didn't show up this afternoon. I was coming up on the ride here to Oswego, watch the game. That March Madness live app is pretty handy.
Clutch.
And Kansas stunk. Stanford.
To go from 80 points in your second round game to only 57 points in a loss. It's an offensive team, and you know if you're going to keep a game low scoring, that always favors the underdog.
Stanford just outplayed Kansas from start to finish. This was never a game that you were like, you know what, Kansas is going to make a run. Kansas is going to make a run. Stanford just
Held it down.
started
They
off
just
and they
clamped
held
down.
it down. They played great defense. They're an excellent foul shooting team.
Yeah.
And you know what? The tree was better than the Jayhawk because the Stanford Cardinals just beat up the Jayhawks. Wiggins stunk.
All right.
I'm just seriously,
It was that bad.
I'm at a loss for words.
It is.
Kansas just didn't show up, and
But let's move on to your Tar Heels. You guys are both Tar Heels fans, and I had to
I
get
get
that
all-
story in there because Syracuse lost, so I had to get
I
it
get
in
all
there.
You're gonna make
emotional
me
about
cry.
Kansas, and just I'm flabbergasted. All
Iowa
right.
State, you have Big 12 Player of the Year, Melvin Edgem. DeAndre Kane, I
You
think,
go.
should
I
have
gotta catch
deserved
my
that.
breath right now.
But
Oh my
what
goodness.
happened? I mean, they were almost at what, an 8-10 point lead down the stretch, and then Naz
At
Long
this
two
point-
threes.
Tears to my eyes.
Oh, Iowa State is very good
Yes.
as a 3 seed. And you know what? Losing your top scorer, granted there's now more to play for, but UNC has been a team that was up and down all year long. They were very similar to what we talked about just a little bit ago with Laker hockey. You didn't know which way they were going to go on any given night. And you know what? It's the same thing that happened. They barely squeaked by Providence. The Friars. What? And now you have to go
I'm
and
just
face Iowa
frustrated with
State.
this team.
You really
What
have
the-
had it, haven't you?
They were
Matt,
up by
6. You got to
6.
wrap it up. We got to go to the 2-minute. What is your final thoughts for North Carolina?
It
Say
makes
right
me
to the
sad.
camera, the Tar Heels.
Awful execution down the stretch. You knew as soon as Iowa State got that last possession, I knew they were going to score. Just
Awful ball handling and awful.
it was a game
possession.
they should have won.
Game management.
It is true.
was a
Game
It is
management
true.
is what it came down to.
All right, well, we're halfway through the show, so you know what that means. Our 2-minute drill is not as exciting as March Madness, but we do have an interesting story. Falcons receiver Roddy White told a fan last week that he would give him Atlanta Falcons season tickets on the 50-yard line if 14-seeded Mercer beat Duke. Well, it did happen, but White altered his bet, giving the fan tickets to a Bears game because in his Twitter name he had a Bears logo, but he's really a Falcons fan and a Mercer Bears fan. So what is your take on this?
Roddy. You know what? You were taught this as a young man, as an adult. You put money down, you better pay up. And Roddy White is not paying up, and Roddy White is a disgrace at this point because you know what? You are. How great of a PR move would this be for Roddy White? He bet this fan on Twitter, and then he lost, and he gave him season tickets. You interview the guy, you get the nice picture with him.
It would have been a nice.
It would have been a nice story. Instead, Roddy White has to be a little Scrooge. That's I guess the best word to use. And he's saying, I'm giving him this one game. I don't want that. I'll take season tickets in the 300 level so I can see everything.
Roddy White is as
True,
bad as the Falcons
true.
were last year.
Oh, that's ugly.
That's bad. That is ugly. You said it before the show, and I'm going to borrow it. Put up or shut up. You know what?
you.
Don't write a check.
No
Your
one-
mouth can't
Yeah.
cash.
No one-
Once it's out there, you can't take it back.
Nobody was saying, hey,
Everyone
Roddy,
saw it.
let's
It's
do it.
retweetable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, you got to stick with
Power
it.
of social
And
media.
You are an all-pro millionaire wide receiver. Why can you not buy season tickets for one guy?
One person.
One season ticket. It can't be that bad.
All right, we're going to have one more story. David Ortiz agreed to a $16 million extension with the Red Sox for 2015. Good or bad?
I like this move. I think it's a one-year deal. It's small. It's 1 year. Here's an interesting thing that I saw today. Face of MLB, it might be David Ortiz. Coming right off the World Series.
He's certainly the face of Boston and the face of the AL East.
You're going to laugh who the other person I'm going to say. Probably Alex Rodriguez.
True. For the wrong reason.
Yeah. All right, well, coming up after the break, the fellows will break down the West and Midwest regions. So don't touch your remote. You're watching The Playing Field.
There's a lot of talk out on the street about his mother, his mother, your mother, their mother. But in the end, is anyone really even thinking about them?
Hi, I'm Woodsy Owl, and I'm here to tell you about a dirty word, water pollution. Kids, it's up to us to keep our lakes and streams clean and beautiful. We've been polluting the water with all kinds of junk like paper, cans, and gooey gunk. It looks ugly, and it's killing our fish and ducks. Please don't throw junk in the water. Give a hoot. Don't pollute.
In the city or in the woods, help keep America looking good.
I'm lucky. Let me help you with that. I get to do something I love. It has nothing to do with touchdowns or titles. Everybody bring it in. I get to play a part in the life of someone just starting out. How many of you think homework is just as important as teamwork? I help keep kids in school. Good. And that's the name of the game. My name is LaDainian Thomason. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United.
It's easy to tell if you've had way too many. But what if you've had just one too many? Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Last night, Lori Capricuzzi scored 2 goals on Aliyah Brian Love. And
Joe, get out. Adam, you're in.
Lori Korpakovsky scored 2 goals on Ilya Brizgalov. Got it!
Wake the sun, tell him that I've begun to dream of things to come, and tell the trees not to look for me. I'm going to find some peace of mind. Wake the sun, wake the sun, wake the sun, wake the sun.
Welcome back to the playing field. Games are still being played, well, just Arizona, and teams are still punching their ticket to the Sweet 16, so let's move on to the West bracket. I'm going to start with Wisconsin and Oregon. That was one of the most exciting games that I've seen. Wisconsin was down 12. They came back. Bo Ryan's squad. They limited transition points of Oregon to 0 in the second half. That's amazing. So what do you guys think of Wisconsin? Final Four team?
Certainly capable. And at this point, the challenge now comes from Baylor, and we'll get to that. But I don't think that Arizona is as strong of a team for a 1 seed as you would think. They are extremely good. They're extremely qualified. But, man, Wisconsin looked really good. They looked able to bounce back against a very good Oregon team. I don't know. I think it's possible.
You know what? This is what I want to know. Does Wisconsin have the offense? Kaminsky is the guy. If Frank Kaminsky, there's not many guys who are 7 foot and can step out to the 3-point line.
No,
he's a matchup nightmare for any other player. Remember, Oregon had a double-digit advantage in this game, and I picked the Ducks to win that game because I thought Oregon was going to roll up and down, was going to get up and down transition, which they did in the first half. Wisconsin proved that they were going to be able to shoot the rock and keep up. I just wonder if the offense is going to be able to sustain for Bo Ryan's team. And Wisconsin is always a team that struggles in the NCAA tournament just for the fact they don't put up the sheer amount of points as usually some of their opponents do.
They put up 85.
They did. Against an Oregon team that just wants to run up and down the floor.
Yeah,
basketball team's awfully similar to their football team.
What if they get in a game against a Florida? Now,
Didn't their football team score 77 at one point this year?
Yeah, but you know
that was Baylor.
What if they get in a game where they got to win in the 70s and the 60s? One of those
you start to drop down into the low 60s games. That's where I start to worry about Wisconsin. If you put that game up into those typical Big 12 games where you're up there, this is not an old Big East game. You put them in an old Big East type game where you're low 50s, low 60s, they're going to run into trouble.
All right, so let's move on to Baylor-Creighton. Great game. Wow. Dougie McBuckets couldn't get it done. They lost 85-55. Oof. Did you guys see this blowout? Because as good as McDermott is, I didn't see this.
Yeah, I thought Creighton would put up a little better of a fight than they did today.
A little bit better. If they put up any fight, it would have been better than 30 points.
I don't know if this is a question of more Baylor good, Creighton bad. The Blue Jays just didn't show up today.
You've got good wins and bad losses.
I don't think Baylor.
It's either a good win or a bad loss. For this one, it's a bad loss for Creighton.
And win the national championship. But Creighton did not show up. I mean,
sick 'em Bears,
they're
man.
in the Big East, though. You have to take a look at that. Doesn't that?
They're
not facing like Baylor teams, that kind of stuff.
Right. Well,
that's true. The quality of the teams now in the Big East has changed.
But you know what? Creighton.
But you look at the quality of teams in the ACC. How's the ACC doing?
Work out too well for them.
One team in the Sweet 16.
It's all about matchups come tournament time.
That's true.
That is true. All right, Midwest bracket. Mercer stuns Duke.
Oh, I'm glad we got to this one.
Your thoughts, reaction. I mean.
Well, this one made me feel a little bit better. We talked about Syracuse losing.
Yeah.
We talked about North Carolina losing, Duke losing.
In the second round.
It makes a lot of people happy, and that kind of concerns me. They're kind of like the Dallas Cowboys of college basketball. A lot of people just want to see them lose. And you know what? Same story that we've had throughout all of these and looking at them. The best players haven't pushed their team to a win. You look at Wiggins. You look now at Parker. You look at McDermott.
Well, how about Rodney Hood, who was second
all of
team
these
all
guys,
ACC?
At the end of the day, they didn't get it done.
They didn't get done. Duke stunk against Mercer.
Well, yeah, they were. I mean, anytime a 3 loses 14, I mean, you want to go back 2 years where all of a sudden
Mercer dragged the skunk out of the garbage can, put it at the 3-point line, and although Duke was knocking a good amount of them down the stretch, the Blue Devils cannot put the ball in the basket. Parker had an awful game. Rodney Hood, who I want to mention, this is Duke's second go-to guy, 16.5 a game, 6 points. Yeah. 6 freaking points against Mercer?
That's what we're saying, is that these guys,
Mercer?
They're not showing up, and this is a tournament of the unknowns.
When I heard
because
Mercer,
you know what? If you told me that North Carolina and Kentucky were both going to be underdogs today coming into this season, if you told me that all of a sudden you would have Dayton-Stanford as a Sweet 16 matchup, I would never buy that. This has been an incredibly storylined tournament, and you know what? Duke plays the part of the early exit.
Did they play down to their competition? Is that, do you think, or was Mercer?
They didn't play down to their competition.
Better?
They just played bad. They just
And Mercer
flat
got
out played
spanked today
bad.
by Tennessee. And Tennessee, let's remember, this is the same Tennessee team that had to play in the first four. It seems every year now.
First four to Final Four?
That's why I always say people don't, the first
Well,
four
now
games,
they have Michigan.
The 16 matchups don't really mean anything. But you know what? Those 11, 12 games, VCU made the Final Four one year out of that. So you know what? Great win for Mercer. Great win for their program. Langston Hall was an absolute monster in that game. He was able to get to the rim. You know what the crazy thing was, though? Mercer didn't have, there was no flair, there was no pizzazz.
No, this wasn't a Florida Gulf Coast team.
Just
This was
beat
just
up Duke.
they just played
Daniel
basketball.
Kuzi was great inside. Mercer sounds like Mercy from Kanye West or something crazy like that. Mercer,
I have Mercer on Duke.
I am so stunned by this tournament. That's why I'm at a loss for words.
All right, well, here's another stunning fact. Wichita State is no longer perfect. They had a great run, and I will say this on TV that I was skeptical of them, but they looked great today against Kentucky, but they just fell short.
I have some strong opinions about this one, Mr. I.
5 freshmen for Kentucky beating this, pretty experienced Final Four team of last year. What do you guys
I want to
think?
hear what you guys say.
They drew the hardest bracket. By far, the Midwest
Not
is
even
the
close.
toughest bracket. If they wanted to make the Final Four, they would potentially have to beat Kentucky, beat Louisville, and then beat Michigan. If you want to go through the 8, the 4, and the 2 that they would have to face. They only made it through one of those 3. You can't. Can they hang with the big boys? Well, I don't know. They hung with 8 seed Kentucky. That's not really a definition big boy. If they would have beat Kentucky, lost to Louisville, maybe we have a different conversation. If they beat both and lose to Michigan, certainly having a different conversation.
Yep.
But this team is exactly what we thought they were, is that they are not, the record is not indicative of the quality of the team. You put them into a conference like the ACC, you put them into a big, big conference. Syracuse is 25-0. They are out. Undefeated means nothing. It's the quality of the wins that you get. Brace yourself.
Oh boy.
Play nice.
Dan,
Okay. Breathe.
although Wichita State lost, let me name you.
Who did they beat this year? St. Louis?
Let me finish. Let me name you the other 8 seeds in the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
George Washington, Colorado, and Gonzaga. The only 8 seed to win was Gonzaga, who was getting basically owned right now by Arizona.
Correct.
Kentucky is figuring it out right now. This is a scary team. Julius Randle is one of the best players in the conference. The Harrison twins, the talent on this team is superb. You know what? Wichita State, yeah, they lost. Don't yawn at me.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry. You're boring me.
No, you know what?
They weren't that good.
I am livid
They
with
were
people
not
like
that good.
I am livid with people like you disrespecting this team. If they
Could
were
this team have ever made the Final Four?
Yes, if they were in
They did last
Virginia,
year.
if they were in Virginia's bracket, they would have played George Washington, then Memphis, then they would have had an interesting matchup with Michigan State. Instead, they draw probably
No.
the hottest team
No,
in
no,
the
no, no,
tournament
no.
right now in Kentucky. Can Kentucky go to the Final Four? Yes.
Potentially.
Yes.
They
Yes,
have to
they
get
can.
past Louisville and Michigan to do that.
And
no.
Wichita State, undefeated, was forced to have to do that? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. You know
Why?
what? They're the weakest number 1. Give them the toughest bracket to play in.
All right, this is my Sunday night entertainment, but we have to take a break. But when we come back, we'll see who the guys think will make it to the Elite
You're
Eight
always-
and who they have in their Final Four. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
So, April.
Yeah?
You know your charger's still using energy when it's plugged into the wall, right?
Yeah, but that's not my charger. I don't even have a cell phone.
Millions of kids are using their energy wisely. What's your excuse?
So what sets the Rundown apart from other newscasts is that it brings students together to voice their opinions on the world's most important political issues.
There seems to be just more events going on in 2012 than there were in previous years combined.
This nation is based on the foundation that we choose the government.
Do we use 1, 2, and 3? We work hard to bring you the most up-to-date, relevant coverage of the stories you should be following. The country has now gone over the fiscal cliff.
Is gun control necessary? How much is too much?
Does it surprise you that it's taken this long to have a serious talk about gun control? Students need to realize that this is the time when what's going on in Capitol Hill and around the world starts to affect them.
And really, the fate of the entire country is at hand here.
This is it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go camera 2.
Good evening and welcome to The Rundown. I'm Megan Roberts.
This can't be happening. This can't be happening.
Of course it's not happening. Armored car. Listen, having money isn't about luck. Make your own coffee, save $1,000 a year. Feed me.
Feed the pig.
W. 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 TOP. Bomb.
I present to you Algebra 2. Foreign languages. And finally, biology. Who among you will step up to their challenge?
Me.
Yeah, I'll do it. Sign me up.
Take on the tough classes now. You need them to prepare for college.
Welcome back to the playing field. The Sweet 16 is almost set. We're waiting on the Arizona to win. And games resume Thursday to see which teams will make it to the Elite Eight. And then by the time we come back next Sunday, we'll have the final 4 teams determined. So let's take a look at who Matt and Dan think advances. All right, we're going to do a rapid fire here. So Florida versus UCLA.
Gators. It's got to be the Gators at this point.
If Kyle Anderson gets hot, the Bruins have a chance. I just think too much Florida in the end. Frazier will probably get hot from 3.
If you had Dayton Stanford in your bracket, you deserve $1 billion. But who are you picking?
This is one of the tougher ones to call, and you know what? I think Dayton keeps going.
I agree. I think the Flyers are kind of becoming that. They're going to be the team this year. They're going to be the team that everyone rallies right. I got my red on right now for the Dayton Flyers. Although Stanford's that same color, not the same shade of red. Flyers to the Elite Eight.
All right, Michigan
You could have gone either way with that.
True. Look at that.
He learned something once
He was
in a while.
listening.
Hey, first time.
First time for everything. Michigan State and Virginia.
For really the only 1-4 classic, this is who we thought were going to play each other. This game has the potential to be very good. It's going to be probably low scoring. Michigan State is the trendy pick, and I think there's a reason for that. Preseason, they were one of the teams to beat. Brandon Dawson is the glue guy for the Spartans. If
Tom
he plays
Izzo
well,
makes
he
that
does.
team. He is an incredible
No disrespect to
postseason
Virginia,
coach.
who is handling their business right now against Memphis.
The ACC will be done at this point.
I like the
Michigan
Spartans.
State.
Adrian Payne,
We're agreeing
41.
on everything
I
right
know.
now.
This is weird.
I don't
I'm a
like
little
it.
nervous.
We got something coming,
All right,
Tommy.
UConn and Iowa State.
Perfect.
Shabazz
take
versus
UConn.
Kane.
He's killing me right
Really?
now. I think
Really?
in Madison Square Garden. That will almost be
that
a
is fair.
neutral home game for UConn.
That UConn runs that building.
Let's remember, UConn had a nice historic run in the same. You like how everything ties in? Kemba Walker brings them.
Can Shabazz do that?
Can Shabazz do it? And you know what? Kemba started it.
You know what?
With Shabazz.
With Shabazz in MSG.
Shabazz in that team.
Can Shabazz in MSG bring him to the Final Four?
The reason they won't get back to the Final Four is because Shabazz does not have Shabazz as a young guard.
No other wing scorer for UConn.
I think Ryan Boatwright can kind of, not as good as he once was,
good,
but all right, San Diego State and Arizona. Considering, I mean, I think
I
they're
like
gonna win.
the upset here. I like San Diego State. They just have that feel to them coming in.
Xavier Thames.
Yeah, you know what?
30 points
Sure, they had to play North Dakota State, who came off of a big win against Oklahoma, but when you handle them by 19 points, I think this is, it's a 1-4, but I think it's almost kind of a trap game for Arizona that you look past that to the Wisconsin-Baylor winner. I like San Diego State to the
strongly
Elite Eight.
considered picking the Aztecs because Xavier Thames had 30 points in the last game. Steve Fisher's still doing it back from the Fab 5 days. He's with the Aztecs right now. He has them with a chance to go.
So are we disagreeing here?
Yes, I do like the Wildcats. I think Aaron Gordon, this whole
Get your
Arizona
head
team.
Stone, come on.
You know what's funny? I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. Sean Miller, the Arizona coach, his younger brother is the head coach of the Dayton Flyers.
That's true. What else we got?
That'd be interesting.
Wisconsin Baylor.
Here's my upset
This is a
special.
good
I like
good
the
one.
Bears to win this game. Wisconsin, by the skin of their teeth, was able to get off of Oregon. Maybe Wisconsin doesn't have a good thing with those bright unis. Baylor. Elite
Wisconsin, a team that scores in high numbers and likes to run up scores. Baylor, a team that did run up scores. Both teams put up 85 in their round of
Can they do it
32
again?
games. I think Wisconsin comes away with this one. The Bears are a threat. They're a danger. But, man, Wisconsin looks good.
All right, Louisville and Kentucky.
I don't care what anyone says. This is the game of next week.
Absolutely.
It is not.
Absolutely.
You might have your Dayton storylines, but you know what? This is the game you have to watch because
March 28th, 9:45 p.m. It's in prime time.
Regardless, you were
Almost a 10
getting either
o'clock start.
Wichita, Kentucky, Wichita, Louisville, which would have been absolutely unbelievable.
Or Kentucky, Louisville.
Or Kentucky, Louisville.
You need any
These
more of a
two
rivalry
teams
right
played
there.
earlier in the year. This is a battle for the Bluegrass State. These teams do not like each other.
Who do you have in this,
Yeah, who
though?
are you picking?
That is a very good question. I am taking the Kentucky Wildcats to move
Interesting.
on. I think this Kentucky team, all the pieces are starting to come together. Louisville struggled against Manhattan. Kentucky, if they play their game, can easily win this game. Wildcats moving on.
Russ Smith is a Naismith finalist.
With Julius
out of
Randle
4.
starting against
For your
him,
red
James
shirt,
Young.
I'm going with Louisville on this one.
All right.
You know what? It's a toss-up. Got to go with the experience. 5 freshmen.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kentucky.
It's true. They kind of have a roll going, though.
That's been the theme of this tournament.
True.
I'll give them that.
True.
Michigan and Tennessee. It's the last one.
I'm sticking with the upsets. I think the Vols, after winning today, now granted they got Mercer, but there's no way they will overlook the Michigan Wolverines, who I think were the most overseeded team in this NCAA tournament. I thought a 2 seed was a little bit too nice for the Wolverines, and I think that will come back to bite them. Tennessee, an 11 seed, getting to the Elite 8. So I have Baylor, a 6, Tennessee,
high
an
hopes
11,
for this team.
and
Michigan
Dayton,
hit
11.
14 threes.
That's true, but you know what? I don't think they're going to be able to do it again. I think Tennessee, Jordan McRae, this team is on a mission coming from first 4.
Michigan, Louisville,
Probably not the
line 'em
Final
up in
Four.
the 8.
It would be a great
Michigan's on a. I mean, they lost in the championship game to Louisville.
one. Remember,
So
you lose Tim Hardaway Jr.
True. Trey Burke.
You lose Trey Burke. Ken Glenn Robinson put the back on his team,
True.
and Nick Stauskas, of course.
All right, Dan, most intriguing matchup out of this Elite 8.
You know, it's easy to say that you look at the Louisville-Kentucky game, you look at the other big matchups, the 1-4 that you have with Virginia.
I know where he's going with this.
I want to see the 10-11. I want to see Dayton Stanford. You know what? This is an intriguing matchup. A 10 or an 11, a double-digit seed will go to the Elite 8. No questions asked. Now, the problem is you draw Florida. Things get a little bit hairy at that point, but you never know. And you know what? I have Dayton in this one. It's an exciting game. I'm really intrigued to see what happens in Memphis.
My eyes will be glued to that game, without a doubt.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Wichita, Kentucky is the must-see matchup. I don't think there's any doubt about it. My upset special we just picked, Tennessee over Michigan. I like the Volunteers to win this game. Every year we've seen a first 4 to Final 4 team. Not first 4 to Final 4, but first 4 to make a little bit of a run. Tennessee is hot right now. Remember, they've won an extra game more than anyone else. They beat Iowa. They won last week, and then they just beat Mercer today, beat them by 20. Tennessee will not, mark my words, Michigan was the most overseeded team.
Sure.
I think a 2 seed was too
But a
gracious.
2 against an 11.
But you know what? Tennessee's not
Who you
playing
got
like
in
an
the
11 right now.
Final four.
Final four.
My Final Four, breaking it down, Florida, I think, we've
Okay.
talked about this, they are shooing. I think Michigan State is the one you got to fear coming out of the East. And I think you would agree with me on that that is going to be the left side of your
great
bracket.
matchup.
That's going to be your Final Four.
Okay.
The other side, Wisconsin, rolling from Baylor, moves on. They move on to the Final Four. And I'm sticking with experience. I think that if your prediction comes right, Tennessee does beat Michigan, that opens the door for Kentucky or Louisville. I had Louisville. Louisville moves on. So you have Louisville, Wisconsin, a lot of red in that matchup, and Florida, Michigan State, some blue and some green on the other side.
It's hard with some common sense to pick against Florida, and I won't be the fool who does that. I think the Gators out of the South
Stranger
will be
things
able
have
to
happened
get
in
to
this
the Final
tournament already,
Four.
though.
And I know. I have to agree with you, though. I think Michigan State is on a run, and I think the winner of that matchup, if it does come true between Michigan State and Florida,
that's your national champion.
On the other side,
Absolutely.
Louisville versus Baylor.
Curious,
Yes.
out of your 4, who's your champion?
Probably
Good
Florida.
question.
We'll revisit that in a couple of weeks because I want
about
to
that
see how
next
these
week.
next two
Next
games
week
come
we'll
out.
have everything
Who do you
figured
got,
out.
though?
My
As of right
national,
now.
Right now it's Florida, but it's going to change.
I like the way Michigan State plays.
A lot of people do.
Oh, so does Obama. He picked
them.
them. All right, there you have their picks. We'll see how things unfold in the upcoming week. By Sunday, there will be 4
gonna be
teams
fun.
heading to Dallas to fight for that coveted national championship. Coming up, New York is making all kinds of moves, but we're not talking basketball. Stay tuned. You're watching The Playing Field.
No matter where you live, life in the ocean depends on you. Do your part to help protect it. Recycle and dispose of your trash properly. To learn what you can do, go to keepoceansclean.org.
No, I know it's Thursday, but who cares? No. Believe me. I know. Believe me. I have 100 people going around. No. All right. Bye. What is this? What is this? There's no one here. There's no one here. Where is everybody? Hello? Is anybody home? Nice out for me, man. What is this? Where can everybody be on Thursday night? There's no one here. Oh my goodness gracious. What is this? No one here. You gotta be kidding me. It's ridiculous. Where is it? Where is everybody? Hey, yo. Where you guys go? Wait, hey, no. Dude, you gotta go. No, that's home. It's Thursday night. It's karaoke night. No, you guys gonna miss out.
So, Malcolm, you do know that energy savers last 6 times longer than ordinary light bulbs.
This isn't my room. It's Baron Davis's.
Baron Davis, the basketball player? This is his room?
Yep.
Interesting, because we have Baron Davis right here. Baron, do you live here?
No.
I don't mean that, Baron Davis.
Millions of kids are using their energy wisely. What's your excuse?
The Hollywood View is back with a brand new season and a brand new look. Join me for non-stop Hollywood coverage news right here on WTOP 10 every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m.
Everyone has friends. There's online friends. Friends to go out with on a Saturday night. Friends to hang out with and do nothing. Friends who show up on moving day. And then there are the friends who'll be there if someone is dealing with a mental illness. Are you one of those friends?
A wildfire can come from anywhere, but 9 out of 10 are caused by humans and can be prevented. Protect our friends in the forest.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Coming to a town you're watching WTOP TV 10, Oswego, New York. I'm the Kid. Come on.
I got no balls, sugars, and shocking drugs that roll all the time. Just had a few drinks. This can't be happening.
Are we clear?
Clear. We're just buzzed. Just buzzed? You didn't tell us that, sir. You're right. This isn't happening. You'll be fine.
I feel good.
Really? No, not really.
Buzz driving.
Clear.
Maybe we should stop acting like it's no good deal.
Shocking.
Welcome back to the playing field. We're in the final stretch of our show, but before we say goodnight, we have one more story and another 2-minute drill. Jets release Sanchez and, hold on one second. Big news coming out of New York this week, and I'm not talking about Phil Jackson and the Knicks. The Jets released former starting quarterback Mark Sanchez on Friday, and minutes later it was reported that the Jets signed Michael Vick to a 1-year deal. So my question to you, who starts?
I
Vic
think
or
Alicia
Gino?
was just stunned that Vic,
I
Vic
was.
is a Jet.
I didn't see this coming.
Listen, as the resident Jets expert, Geno Smith will be the starter week 1.
As the resident Jets homer.
No, I think I'm very fair on this team. I don't think I ever mauled them out too much.
Overpushed, yeah.
Overpushed.
I agree. Yeah, I got you on that.
Geno Smith should and will be the starter week 1. If the Jets
You
have
are dead
if the
wrong.
Jets have it how they want, Geno will win the job. Vic will basically be a 1-year, $5 million Yoda who helps Geno get better, pushes him. Now, worst case scenario, the Jets need a quarterback who can come in and can compete and can still give them a chance to win, and that's what Vic would do.
True.
There's no quarterback controversy.
You said best case scenario for the Jets. Looking at Geno last year, I don't think that the best case scenario is a very realistic scenario. I think if this is an open competition going into camp,
It's an
Vic
open
has to
competition
have
with
the
a
edge because you
curve.
know what? You see it with people all the time that someone interviews well, but they don't do the job well. Vic interviews very well. In training camp, he looks really good. He goes back to NFL Street 3 style. When you play with him, he runs all over the place.
He's dropping PS2 references on us. Wow.
All right, well, I hate to cut you short because I know you like the Jets, but we're going to do a 2-minute drill. Reigning Cy Young winner Max Scherzer, talks have halted between him and the Detroit Tigers. What do you think?
Trying to get that money. If I'm Scherzer, this guy was a Cy Young Award winner. He's trying to get paid. Don't blame him. He wants Verlander.
With the amount of injuries and things going wrong with pitchers, I'm very concerned for him. I don't think you walk away. You don't walk away from that kind of money because you know what?
Someone's going to pay him in the free agency.
He now has to have a huge season.
Or at least 15, 18 wins.
He's got to be almost as good as last year. 70 to 75% as good as last year because you know what? All of a sudden he tumbles, the number is going to come down fast.
Miami Heat are struggling, losing 7 of last 11. You guys worried yet? Panic?
No, but I mean, how many times do we talk about this? I still think the Pacers are the team to beat in the East. I still think they're going to make the finals.
Biggest statement coming from Chris Bosh, the first to say that they suck.
He did say that. That's a quote.
They
Direct
do.
Quote.
This Wednesday, Pacers Heat. That'll show you where this rivalry is really at.
That's where LeBron steps up.
All right, Don Mattingly questions Yasiel Puig on his injury. What do you guys think?
He didn't want to go to Australia. He didn't really want to play that much. And when you strike out 4 or 5 times in the game like he did, it's going to happen.
That's true. He had a really rough opening night, but second day, not so bad in the second game. You know, I don't like him for his attitude, but he brings some flash to the game.
Dude can ball.
True.
Dude can ball.
Ball don't lie.
Ball does not lie.
All right, well, we are all out of time. Thank you for tuning in to The Playing Field. We're here every Sunday from 11 to midnight discussing the hottest sports topics of the week. For Matt Stone and Dan I'm Alicia D'Addario, and we're out.